Situation in Macau. What does it tell us, this response? What does it tell us about China's COVID policy right now? What does it tell us about the potential for the bigger picture economic situation in China?
Well, actually, this is one thing that is still holding back China. And so we are expecting that in the second half, you will see a subpar recovery because we don't expect a full reopening in China on account of this COVID restrictions. However, we do think that, the infrastructure stimulus that is being planned will provide some additional support to the growth. And so therefore, we are expecting a subpar recovery with GDP growth in the third quarter clocking at 2.7% year on year, from that, below 1% that we saw in the second quarter, and then picks up further to 4.7% in the fourth quarter. So we are expecting an improvement in China's growth, but it's still going to be below trend and below potential in the second half of this year.
But are those numbers predicated on continuing status quo as far as the COVID response is concerned? Or does this take into account the potential that we're going to see what's happening in Macau being replicated elsewhere in the country?
Well, we don't think that in the country, rather in mainland, you're going to see any big lockdowns like what we saw in Shanghai and Beijing. We think regular testing is the way China will pursue going forward on COVID management. And that will mean that we will be seeing some recovery in consumption compared to what we were seeing in March, April. And that's kind of the assumption that we are making in that second half growth forecast that I just mentioned. And then, as I mentioned, the other big driver is infrastructure stimulus, which is quite significant. So that's going to be an additional driver to ensure that growth improves in second half of this year.
Infrastructure stimulus seems to have been the primary method whereby the Chinese government is attacking some of these issues. But is it enough? Is it going to make up the shortfall in what most of the big houses are now talking about in terms of their growth projections?
It's not going to be enough, and that's why our narrative is that it is going to be a subpar recovery. And to get that full-fledged recovery, you will have to see relaxation of COVID restrictions in a proper manner. And we think that's going to happen later this year, probably towards the end of this year, but more meaningfully showing up in numbers only from early 2023.